Great. Terrific. All right. As is often the case with the RAP meetings, I'm going to go light on process and bureaucracy and heavy on content. We have a very powerful group that comes to these meetings of important people who are doing the important work of expediting as much as we can wildfire risk reduction in order to increase the number of hardened homes with defensible space, and then getting that scaled up to the community level to the point where it really moves the needle, both in terms of saving houses, saving homes, and also helping get insurers' confidence restored in selling insurance at a price that makes more sense for households. So there's just so many different threads going on, and it's absolutely United Policyholders' privilege to be helping facilitate all this good work through these monthly meetings. So again, I want to acknowledge my staff for all the work that goes on between our meetings to identify who's doing what out there throughout California, but also around the country, but most importantly, with wildfire risk reduction in California, and helping restore insurance safety nets, which is our ultimate goal. So without much further ado, I want to do two quick things before we get our guest speakers on. One is acknowledge, as some of you may know, or many of you, that today the California Department of Insurance is holding a hearing, another hearing. It's actually a still not quite the formal, as in it's still an informal workshop. They are still getting input before they finalize their a set of regulations. Still has to go through some Administrative Procedure Act hoops to get finalized. So they're still seeking input. So today is the deadline for letting them know what you think about them allowing insurers to incorporate catastrophe models in their rate filings. And if you didn't already know about it, it's probably too late for you to comment. But United Policyholders did file a set of comments, and our very own Joel Loucher, who has a dual role, will be, I don't know if, I think a little later today, actually, in probably an hour, will be offering his own perspectives as somebody who had been over the head of the Rate Regulation Bureau at the DOI. But UP has filed our comments. They should be up on our website by now in the Advocacy and Action section. But Emily will be happy to send the link, or Katie, if she's on, to anyone. You might even be able to post in the chat if Erica has gotten our comments up. But if they're not up yet on our website, there will be soon. So I want to acknowledge the incredible amount of thoughtfulness that the department is putting into making this change. And I know that a lot of our working group members are either already working with modelers, or they are modelers, or they understand the importance of modeling to delivering mitigation incentives. But it still remains a very delicate topic for us, because CAT models have had a history. When you look around where they're being used, California Earthquake Authority, Risk 2.0 with the flood program, they have had the effect of raising rates. And while it's not uniform that a model is going to mean everybody's rates get higher, our abiding worry about them, recognizing that they are probably have to be here because that's a way that insurers are pricing risk all over the country, and they need some consistency, but acknowledging that when a for-profit modeling entity, when an entity that is selling a service or a product to an insurance company is defining their projections, there is a risk of them guessing high and overstating potential future CAT risk, because it's safer for them as a vendor to guess higher than to guess lower, because obviously their client is depending on them for rate adequacy. So just with that said, we really think the department is doing a very good job at least trying to process all the different inputs and moving forward. Insurers have been very clear for many years that the ability to use CAT models in their California rate filings is a non-negotiable item for them to be able to return to the market. It's one of several, but this is a big one. So we are moving today in a direction, but again, still we're in process. And I will say that insurance folks have been hoping that that process would be moving faster than it is, but it is, I think, moving as fast as it feels safe to the decision makers at the agency. So with that said, I want to acknowledge our first guest speaker, Ivan O'Neill, who a lot of you probably know. His company, Madronus, has really been groundbreaking in the North Bay, and actually now he just returned from an international trip. But what he is doing is very much in the sweet spot of what we're doing, and by that I mean he's on the ground with households in communities and fire scientists and people who actually know how to do the work of limbing trees and the modifications required to achieve a safer from wildfires or wildfire prepared home designation. But and so he is developing that very organic hands-on expertise that is needed to keep this whole effort moving, which is like, who's going to do the work? Who's going to say what needs to be done? Who's going to say the work's been done? And of course, all those issues of how are people going to pay for it? There's many, many issues. Ivan, I want to invite you to share your screen. I welcome you. I thank you. I want to hear about your trip, but I want to hear about all the really exciting work you're doing. And thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for that warm introduction, Amy, and appreciate Emily and the rest of your staff and all the work that you do, bringing this group together and just being a resource for so many folks in our community. And I did have the privilege of going on a trip recently with Margot McDonald, who's on the call here, and Frank Freebolt, who was on last month's call, down to Chile to look at the community that survived. And so we got back on Saturday. I think Frank might still be on his way home, but we can talk about that one maybe on another wrap call. For those who don't know me, I see a lot of familiar faces, but I'm Ivan O'Neill, and I'm the co-founder and CEO here of Madronus Wildfire Defense. My past career was doing communications technology on the smart home, worked a lot with some large service providers that offered home security, home automation solutions to millions of customers around the country. In 2017, I started thinking about my next career, and then in 2020 took the leap into the wildfire adaptation, climate adaptation space, and became a wildfire mitigation specialist. I am a wildland firefighter type 2, which is a fancy way of saying they let me hold a shovel and a drip torch on prescribed burns. And then I also serve as a board member for Safer West County, which is a nonprofit here in Sonoma County, doing work on the ground. And I live in Sonoma County in Santa Rosa. I've personally looked at over 80 homes and I oversee a team that's looked at over 2,500 properties so far. I want to talk a little bit about some of the mess that we're in and just kind of what the insurer's perspective is on this. I know nobody wins political office defending insurance companies, but just I think it's helpful for all of us as we're talking to folks in our communities that we know to give a little bit of their perspective. And then, as Amy said, talking about how the wildfire prepared home and safer from wildfires framework can help with some of the challenges we're seeing. So how bad is it? I think a lot of us maybe saw last week that CAL FIRE can't even get insurance on one of its stations in the Northern Sierras. Like, it's that bad. And they could not find an insurer that was willing to underwrite the risk of doing some structure upgrades that they were planning there. So it's just a sign of the times and kind of what we're all facing collectively here. And if you look at an insurance industry body, this is what they're pointing at is what's holding things back. And I'm sure the truth is somewhere in the middle, but if you go back to 2010 and you had a $2,000 premium, and if an insurance company had been allowed to get the annual maximum 7% rate increase, which has not typically been the case, and they were to project that out, they would now be allowed to charge $4,800. They would argue that along the way, their costs of doing business have increased, the cost to rebuild homes due to inflation and building code changes has increased. And of course, their cost of reinsurance, which is primarily driven by global financial conditions and the increase in interest rates, have gone up. But then there's this yellow band, which is what we're seeing here, which is the increased risk from climate-driven weather events and severe and extreme catastrophes. So that has quickly become a real issue, and we've all lived through that here in California in both fire and flood and elsewhere. This data comes from the First Street Foundation. They're a nonprofit data provider and are putting some of this research together. So we all know that 1 in 5 U.S. homes are at risk of being in a wildfire. I got into this space because I was tired of seeing photos like this and our communities burning at urban conflagrations. And it's not just a perceived risk. Even the federal government is weighing in on this. And these are the latest maps that are coming from FEMA that show most of California has some relatively high estimated annual loss or from wildfires. So a lot of the Sierra foothill regions, of course, at least we're up here in Northern California, we have a little bit of a break, but our neighbors down south, they're really feeling the pain right now. And across the West, this is a real challenge. It's not just in California. So folks, many here are in the know, do a lot of research, I know this, but for those who aren't maybe familiar with the IBHS, so it's the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. It is a nonprofit research lab that's funded by the insurance industry. They have a sister organization that on the highway traffic safety side of things, they get paid to smash up cars and are responsible for airbags and a number of other innovations that increase safety, reduce loss of life and property. And on the building side, this institute is based in South Carolina, and you can see here in the foreground, they have what they call the roof farm, and they build roofs and see how they age and how they hold up to the elements. And this big building here with a wall of fans is where they do a lot of testing of structures. So it started as primarily a wind and hurricane, but they can generate 130-mile-an-hour winds and test life-size structures and what happens to them in different weather conditions. So one of our advisors is Dr.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. Those of you who've been coming on these meetings now for years will know that we had several IBHS folks come on before they put out the wildfire prepared home reg, this is the list. And we haven't heard from them in a while. So we really appreciate this, Ivan, but you can, people I think generally are familiar with what they do.
Yeah, so I'll keep it moving. And a lot of what they do is they look at how structures burned. And one of our advisors is Dr. Steve Quarles. He's a real treasure and also based here in Northern California. I know he often attends these meetings. And it's a lot of his research that is the basis now for what is making its way into policy. And I think that this particular image is worth 1,000 words. We know that embers are responsible for up to 90% of ignitions, and it really helps visualize what happens to buildings in the area around them when they're under threat from a wildfire. And in particular, it's this area right here at the base of the wall. And then about 5 feet out, we can kind of see how there's an eddy and a cascading swirling effect that happens next to buildings. So, and then also, what does a bad day look like? This is what insurers are thinking about when they're asking us to do work and mitigate wildfire risk. Millions of embers, and the threat is as small as 1/8 of an inch. So it's a really big challenge. The good news is that science shows that hardening a defensible space can reduce risk by up to 75%. And this was a side-by-side experiment that was done in Northern California in Sacramento, I believe, sometime last year. And they did a side-by-side comparison, typical home construction with a wood fence and bark mulch and a non-combustible siding, non-combustible fence and rock mulch in that near structure area. And with just a 15-mile-an-hour wind and a couple of ignitions, we can see within about 5 minutes what happened to the structure on the left there. So what is Wildfire Prepared Home and what does it do for us? So it's a program that's science-based, and it's the only one that's recognized by major insurers. In fact, 70% of the insurance premium in California is written by insurers that recognize the Wildfire Prepared Home certificate and credential. It has two tiers. There's the base level, which is really designed to mitigate embers and direct flame contact. And then there's the plus tier that's designed to mitigate radiant heat. And I'll just say off the bat, don't worry about the plus unless you're building a brand new house or you're going down and doing a significant remodel down to the studs. Focus on the base level mitigation. It's
Hey,
valid for 3
Ivan,
years. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I really did not want to get you off your game. Finish your thing, but we got a really interesting question about boxing eaves, and since you said don't worry about plus, which is the boxing of the eaves, right? If you can sort of weave that in, what if you can, if you want to, how critical is that, the boxing of the eaves? But go ahead, back to where you were. So sorry.
Yeah, and just one moment. Sorry. All right, so we can address the boxing of the eaves in just a moment. The Wildfire Prepared Home certification, it's valid for 3 years. It does require an annual vegetation review, so you're just sending in some photos of around the house, and then there is a full reinspection on the 3rd anniversary. One thing that's really nice about this is that it's transferable upon sale, so it stays with the property, and if you're looking to sell your house and you have this certificate, your home buyer can go shop for insurance with that certificate. And it's likely to lead to more coverage options being available for them. And, there's been a number of anecdotes about the number of homes that are falling out of escrow right now because home buyers can't find insurance. So this is a way to speed up that process and make sure your buyer can shop with confidence. So, and maybe this is where we'll get to the eaves question, and this is an eyesore. I'm not going to go through it. I do have this available for folks who have ever been curious about how the Wildfire Prepared Home and Safer from Wildfires compare and contrast. The main thing that's different is that there's a lot of similarity. The main difference is that Wildfire Prepared requires that all of the measures that are part of the base level be achieved before you reach a certification level, whereas Safer from Wildfires requires that insurers give you kind of an a la carte a premium discount for individual mitigation actions that you take. So it's a little bit of a different approach. The eaves being enclosed is something that insurers are required to incentivize and under the Safer from Wildfire framework. But at the plus level, Wildfire Prepared Home requires that. So it can be a pretty expensive mitigation. The real vulnerability there is that open eaves where you have rafter tails coming out, the structural pieces of the roof line are extending from the siding, and which then creates a little bit of a box for trapping heat and embers. If anything that's nearby is on fire, that is then exposing the underside of the roof, which is typically made of plywood. It's pretty light wood and easy to ignite. And so when you're trapping embers and heat, that's a recipe for ignition. The other thing that happens is between the rafters, there's at the very end of the construction process, it's typically the last thing that gets done. So they're moving quickly, but they are installing 2x4s as blocking in between those rafter tails. and there's not a lot of caulking typically or sealing that happens. And there can be gaps in there that can let embers into an attic space. And so by enclosing the eaves, we're creating a very smooth surface that's going to channel the heat and embers away, and then also prevent ember penetration into the attic space. So that's why the enclosed eaves are something to focus on. The
Yeah.
alternative, though, is just to keep the nearby vegetation away, and you're going to really reduce any potential for ember and heat to end up in that vulnerable space to begin with.
Mhm.
All right. So again, I can make this available for
Thank
anybody
you.
who wants it, and we can see and how the two compare. So the current wildfire prepared home process is largely DIY, do it yourself. So you really have to study up on it. It is pretty technical, but they have some good resources on wildfireprepared.org, including a homeowner guide. You then have to do the work. When you're ready, you pay a $125 inspection fee, and then an inspection gets scheduled, and then you find out whether or not you passed or not. So if you didn't, then you have to go back and you go through the process again. But when you're successful, you get a certificate, and you can share that with your insurer to either qualify for a renewal or to get a premium discount. Fortunately, we were able to sign an agreement with IBHS to become the statewide priority inspection provider back in January. And we're working on integrating with them and their website at Wildfire Prepared to offer a full service option. So much more of a consultation. And what that looks like with Madronus is that you schedule a consultation with us, you get your treatment plan. We then have a vetted contractor network that's trained up on how to do the work. Or we offer, DIY options, things that you can, many of the things that you can probably do yourself. And then we only do that submission to the Wildfire Prepared program once we're confident that you're going to be able to pass. And we have a 100% success rate at this point, getting folks through the program. So it comes with a beautiful report with a clear, actionable plan. So we show everything that is already compliant, that you've been doing well. And then we show you what would be needed in order to meet the base level for Wildfire Prepared. We can also do other insurers specific requirements, or if you had like a Firewise community and you wanted to offer this in your area, we can work with you on how to do that too. We can get estimates from vetted pros. So if a customer of ours wants help with it, they authorize contractors to view the information and to enter an estimate, and then we can track the progress. So the pricing is, we're always happy to talk with folks, answer questions, and be a resource. For an actual in-person inspection, it's $399. You're going to get a wildfire risk expert that's able to speak about your specific property, and that starts the journey on mitigation. So this was that photo that's worth 1,000 words down in Chile that we were able to have a look at last week. And it's really a success story of both community and preparedness with a heavy dose of luck. I'm going to say that right off the bat. And we haven't been able to publish the final report, but we'll look forward to sharing that on a future call.
Wow.
The last thing I'll say is that we do offer the software white label. So if you are a leader in your area, you have a wildfire organization or a fire agency, and you would like software to help with engaging your community and doing inspections, feel free to give me a call and we'll get you set up.
Awesome. I'm sure I know we have questions. We have some questions in the chat. Let me ask you, you recently made some sort of arrangement with IBHS, right? Can you sort of repeat what that is?
Yeah, so we signed an agreement to provide them with the priority inspection across the state. So what that means is soon, once the website's updated, there'll be an option for folks who are going through the Wildfire Prepared program where you can pay $125 and have, the DIY option. And then we'll be integrated into the buy flow so that you can choose to get a consultation. And then we'll work with you on getting through the certification process.
Okay. And so let's see. Let me see some of these questions. There's sort of some people are answering them themselves. We've got Jason McBroom, CAL FIRE list of low cost retrofit. Number 6, seal any gaps greater than 1/8 of an inch, retrofit any soffit vents and create zone 0 ember resistive zone. Science has tested both means and there's little benefit to enclosing eaves at a cost of $40,000 plus if your insurer still won't renew you. Education to insurers is necessary. So I'm sort of hearing two different things here. I'm hearing you say there is a benefit to enclosing eaves, understanding that the cost is, does that sound 40,000? Does that sound like in the range of what?
That sounds a bit high. I think Jason was responding to the earlier question about eaves and the conversation around it. And I think it's something you do if you're building a brand new home. And in fact,
Gotcha.
in the state responsibility area where Chapter 7A applies, it is now required to have enclosed eaves. So, but it can be a strategy or an option. If you look at the trade-off between replacing, 150 bird hole vents with the labor and the materials versus you can go through and do an eave enclosure. Sometimes that trade-off is worthwhile, especially if your insurer requires it. But I think that there are multiple ways, to Jason's point, that you can reduce the risk to that vulnerable space. It doesn't have to involve enclosing eaves.
Yeah. So great. And again, thank you so much. This is all really, really cutting edge, Ivan. So thank you. Scott Crowdy asked a question that I think is, sort of one of the many elephants in our room. What specific benefits can we tell people they will get if they pass a wildfire prepared inspection? I want to share with the group some things that have been happening that are a little bit just quickly. Right? A lot of us have been saying, gosh, at some point, insurers, especially companies like Mercury that write only in California or primarily in California, they're going to get thirsty for premium revenue and they're going to be coming back and they're looking for ways to come back. And I think I've seen some signs of that. I was recently at a wildfire summit that the insurance commissioner convened in LA, and there were a number of insurance company executives there with major California insurers, AAA, CSAA, Mercury, farmers. And they all seem to want to they want to engage, but I think they're still sort of a little bit torn. They're looking at the sort of regulatory world, but they also are looking at the real world. I got the impression, Ivan, that some of the insurers, but of course I am an optimist, are really kind of stepping up their willingness to reward and to help facilitate even. Is that, while there may not, we can't promise, we know that at least one company, I understand that Farmers is now saying, if you want to keep your policy, you must meet the wildfire prepared home standard. Can you speak to this?
That's right. So I'm an optimist too, Amy. I think we have to be in order to be able to get out of bed every day in this line of work. But
yes,
you're right. So insurers have been stepping up to the plate and they are taking different approaches. I think some are better than others. There's no way around it that it can be a challenge and it requires some investment. But Farmers Insurance is probably the most active on the Wildfire Prepared Home program. And they have been sending letters around to policyholders requiring that they become wildfire prepared certified as a condition of a renewal. And there's typically giving folks, 5 to 6 months notice, 4 to 6 months notice. And but they are renewing people who do get that certification.
Very, very interesting and very topical. All right, we just got to we can cram one or two more questions in, and then we got to move to our next speaker. Kate Simmons asks, can this program connect with the state's Recover California owner occupied mitigation grants of up to 50K in Napa, Santa Cruz, Solano, Sonoma, Butte, Fresno, blah, blah, blah? Do you know the answer, Ivan? If you don't, there may be somebody else on the call that does, like Roberta McIntyre maybe, or Shari Gardner.
My understanding is that they would certainly fund a lot of the work. There's a lot of income requirements on this, but yes, if you were in a county that experienced a wildfire in 2020, such as the ones listed here, you could absolutely take advantage of that and probably cover quite a bit of the cost of getting wildfire prepared. And I think if you were going to do this, you would want to look at wildfire prepared when you were planning your project.
Thank you so much, Ivan. We definitely are going to have you back, because you're clearly kind of riding a wave that's starting to really gain momentum, and that's good. You know, way back when we had Jim Webster with the Colorado Wildfire Partners Program on, like early in this effort. And you know, I would talk, and I do presentations around the country to insurance legislators who sit on insurance committees in their states, and we would talk about wildfire partners as saying, well, here's one program where an insurer won't guarantee that they will offer you a policy or renew you after you graduate and complete, you know, their program and get wildfire risk reduced certified in some way, but they say, and they still say it on their website, we don't know of any of our participating insurers that have dropped somebody who's completed the work. So that's kind of one of the things that makes us know that at some way we're going to be succeeding here with all this hard work. So I want to thank you. One more point, Brandgard Vents, who's a longtime supporter of the RAP effort, Kelly and Brent Berklampus down in the SoCal. They're the ones who make Brandgard Vents. They're early in the vent screen biz, which is always one of those very cost-effective things that most people can afford. Shared in the chat that they will box in eaves with fire-rated fiber cement board for about $125 a lineal feet. So, but we can talk more about that next time. I sort of threw you a curveball there, Ivan. Lots more to discuss. Actually, well, here, I'll give you one more. Is there any fire-resistant treatment that can be applied to tongue and groove lumber in the eaves instead of boxing? Isn't Ivan too complicated?
I'm chuckling because, well, no. The short answer is I know that it's appealing. There's a lot of products out there and vendors that want to sell you a product that would allow you to do that. Here's the thing: if you have tongue and groove lumber and it's 2-inch dimension thick, then you're good. There are no sprays, paints, gels, or anything at this point that has been proven to be effective beyond about 1 year from application. And there's a lot of science behind that. I would be happy to share a link to a YouTube where I go into some depth on that. But yeah.
All right. Well, I want to just acknowledge we are going to move on now to Kate, but that one of the members of our team, Joel Loucher, when we first did the comparison between the list of mitigation steps that our working group derived, we were first. We don't have the weight of a government agency or the IVHS, but we were first with our list, and we really did try. We have academics in the mix here as well, and we really tried to make a list that was going to be the most effective steps that would be most viable. Then when the Safer from Wildfires came out after the IBHS, so it was us, IBHS, Safer from Wildfires pegged the enclosed eaves, and Joel immediately said that's going to be the tough one for a lot of households because it's not DIY. So I just want to acknowledge that, Joel the Sage. And we're going to continue to tackle the challenge of this, and I think a lot of people are out there recognizing that a lot of it is about getting financial help for households to be able to do all these things that we know that they need to do. So Ivan, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll definitely be having you back on. And so Ivan makes it easier for you to find him. So if you have questions that didn't get answered, please feel free. he had his email address up there for a while, so hopefully you can find him. But thank you. And again, anything you ever need in terms of somebody that you saw on the RAP working group meeting that you want to follow up with, you can always hit up Emily at uphelp.org and she will make that connection for you. So Kate Stillwell has been a friend to United Policyholders for a very long time because she is an innovator, as are we, and looks to problem solve, put her skills as a structural engineer to the best possible use for purposes of helping people and structures be more resistant to extreme weather and be more likely to be able to withstand things like earthquakes and wildfires. So Kate has a lot to share, but I'm going to let her share her screen and tell us about one of the several projects that she has advanced. Kate, have you been with us before? I feel like you did present in the past. Do we have you?
I don't think I presented in the past. I think I might have given a 2-minute intro to who I am and what I do.
Okay, well, now's more like your 20 minutes or whatever you can use, but we do want to try to save a little time for questions. Thank you so much.
I will try to save a little time for questions. And before I share my screen, I'll just piggyback, Amy, off of your gracious introduction. I am a licensed structural engineer and a past president of the Structural Engineers Association. And in that role, I participated on public policy committees that help set standards for disaster recovery, and realize that safe buildings are so important, and understand how the building code gets made. And but there is also this really important piece of disaster recovery, which is making sure enough money flows in. And so I decided to dedicate the second half of my career to tapping and unlocking more private market capital after big natural disasters. And I started with earthquakes because that was my domain knowledge. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that my startup Jumpstart has a new and innovative approach to earthquake insurance. So if that's on your mind, go check it out. I won't get into it here. Which was a benefit corporation before I sold it to a flood insurance company. And FireBreak is also a benefit corporation. And so are you seeing the, you guys seeing now?
Not quite yet.
Not
quite yet. It just says you've started screen sharing, but it's all black.
Okay. I'm going to work on it while I keep talking. So
I can give a little spiel while you
okay,
you're
go
good?
ahead, Amy. Yeah, interrupt me
no,
anytime.
you got it. You're here.
Benefit corporation, because when each mitigation matters, as Ivan's last slide said, each action that any one of us takes makes the community safer for everyone. So there is this multiplier effect of the mitigation, and the impact metric of FireBreak is the number of actions taken to mitigate our fire risk. And so now I don't have to tell you, Ivan didn't even have to tell you, although this is repeat, that the wildfire insurance industry is in crisis, and yet these mitigated homes are more likely to survive. And that's why the regulators are making it mandatory to offer these mitigation discounts. So in addition to the fact that a hardened home is more insurable, a conscientious person who takes steps necessary to reduce their risk is also an underwritable criteria, like good driver discounts. But we don't have as much historical data about who actually maintains their yard really well, who thinks about fires. And so we want to stimulate this positive feedback loop, help insurance companies find the conscientious customers, help the conscientious customers find good insurance. So that is exactly the change that FireBreak is trying to create in this world, is this positive feedback loop. Where and on the left, the residents self-inspect. So there's an app where the residents, we have step-by-step instructions, and during the Q&A, I'll show a silent video of how it works. Of walking around their home, taking photos and videos. The app gives them back. So in this left-hand side positive feedback loop, the app gives back top actions they can take to mitigate. It's not the entire list for the wildfire prepared homes, but it's the top up to 3 actions that's really going to move the needle and which is capable for them to do. So like, for example, is a very simple example. If the video shows that they have firewood under their deck, definitely the number 1 action is going to be move the firewood out from under your deck. And so on and so forth for all of the actions that are going to move the needle. And enclose your eaves is probably never going to be at the top of the list because it's not DIY, exactly what you just said, Amy. In addition, the images, which are owned by the resident who takes the photos and videos, but they give us permission to use the images to generate property attributes. So it's a data stream that goes to insurers that facilitates this larger feedback loop so that the insurers know on a house by house basis, okay, are the vents meshed? Are the eaves enclosed? Is there firewood out from under the deck? All these pieces of data that they can't already see from the data sources that they currently use. The CAT models don't know it. The satellite photos can't see it. The flyovers, the airplane flyovers that take pictures from an angle can't see it because many of them are hidden or they're too close to the home to be able to see. So this is a way for the residents to be the source of truth for this additional data source that insurers need to identify, first of all, who's conscientious, but second of all, has the mitigation occurred? So you can hire a property inspector to go out and do this, but the advantage of a self-inspection tool is that it's scalable and thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people can add themselves to this data bank, this growing data bank of I have done the mitigation policies for insurance. So that's like all of it in a nutshell. Currently, mitigation does not much influence the insurability. So the underwriting criteria, which is this red dashed line, this vertical red dashed line, is generally based on factors outside the resident's control. Are you on a slope? What's your exposure to the katabatic winds? Are you in a very high fire hazard severity zone? Et cetera, et cetera. And very few underwriting criteria use the information and data sources that are factors within the resident's control. So a lot of these cuts that are being made are with a very blunt instrument, sometimes as coarse as at the zip code level. And what's missing is, and we provide the missing piece, which is the proof of the actions taken. And so the demo video, I'll leave it up in case you want to copy down the address here, but I will show it during the Q&A on a silent version. And this is just a video of the first step, which is taking the photos and videos around your house. It's not yet a video of the next step, which is that we deliver this advice, as I said before, which is the top actions to do your mitigation. So the middle of the screen here is one example of, okay, let's focus in on your ember zone. So right now your ember zone, and we give a sort of color coding, a relative ranking as opposed to a numerical score. We're ranking you as poor. And why? Because the fire perimeter is the most vulnerable to embers. So it's in the interactive app, you can tap on what are the things I can do for good, better, best. So it's not a black and white standard in terms of you have to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You don't have to make it completely free, but there are different tiers of actions that you can take. And so if you tap on good, you'll see that it says the plants in the ember zone should be lower combustibility, like succulents. And then the best would be like the wildfire prepared home standard. So then you tap on what you will be able to do, and then it tells you what you should do. And then when you take the photos and videos again, you will see how your relative score, again, color-coded score, has leveled up. So in the right-hand side screen, the previous score is the dark gray, and then the new score would be the brighter colors on the right. So
I'm sorry, Kate, since I interrupted Ivan, I have to interrupt you.
Please.
It wouldn't be fair.
Absolutely.
So this app is live now?
This app is in beta. So we are accepting
I just want to make
beta
sure
testers.
Okay. Well, what if you have the perfect pool here to fish for beta testers? Back to you.
Thank you. So I think I want to make, this is a very similar table to what Ivan showed. Ivan, thank you for teeing me up. And we have comparisons to the RAP criteria, as well as the wildfire prepared home criteria. But just as a comparison to the Safer from Wildfires framework, our tiers of good, better, best, and this is for 3 examples for deck, fence, and ember zone, can map to the requirement for any given standard. So like the CDI requirement for the ember zone, which is combustibles cleared within 5 feet, corresponds to our best, which is the dark green. And then the CDI standard for fences, just have a fence that's non-combustible, it maps to our better, but not our best. And so depending on which standard the insurance company wants to use as the basis of their underwriting, we can select which of the tiers of our ranking applies to their underwriting criteria. So we could swap this CDI requirement out with the custom underwriting criteria of any given insurance company, and then be able to tell the user exactly what insurance they would qualify or not qualify for. Again, in beta, not live. So
That's
that
okay.
if we go back to this slide that mitigation should influence insurability, the insurance companies can use a more nuanced underwriting criteria, so that if somebody's in a very high risk area, they don't automatically get nixed, but they would, if they were in this good criteria, they would have to take the mitigation aspects to bump themselves up into the better tier of mitigation, and vice versa. And maybe everybody in the lower risk hazard zones wouldn't even necessarily need to do the home hardening in order to qualify for the insurance.
Okay.
So I'm almost at the end here. There are 2 ways for accessing FireBreak, either from the general public or through your insurer. And again, both of these are in beta. So the general public would be able to download FireBreak for free, use it to inspect their home, and then we, at their option, we would give back the mitigation advice whether they want to plug into insurance or not. If they also want to plug into insurance, we would identify which insurers they would be eligible for, and then let that transaction happen outside of FireBreak. In addition, the clients who pay us are insurance companies who are looking for these conscientious customers who have done the mitigation. So they can white label. We're in process of developing white label solutions for 3 different specialty insurers who
Can you
find.
just, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, Ivan used the same terminology. Tell us what white label means.
White label means, so the app, instead of being a FireBreak, looking and feeling like FireBreak, it looks and feels like the insurance company that you've already know and love. So your insurance company is, let's use the farmers example. Although the first set of insurance companies we're working with are surplus line carriers, not farmers. But if farmers were to white label FireBreak or Madronus, they would have an inspection app that delivers mitigation advice, which instead of having the FireBreak logo has the look and feel of farmers.
I see. Very helpful. Thank you.
Right. So we are now working with a handful of specialty insurers who are using the FireBreak app, in some cases with the FireBreak branding and in some cases with their own branding, so that when they go out and sell their insurance, they make this inspection a condition of being able to offer insurance. In some cases, in the low risk areas, they just ask people to inspect at 30 days after find. But the point of this slide is we make money from the insurance companies, not from the residents themselves, because the insurance companies benefit when they find the good customers.
Well, and they said from the very beginning, we don't want to be the ones to certify that, right? The insurers, at least that early on in all of this work, said we don't want to be in the business of confirming that people have done the work that needed to be done. So you know, you're right. You're filling a very important need here, as is Ivan, that we kind of identified from the get-go. Is like, who's gonna, and some of the, so basically, like, this is self-certification, right? So this is what I think they said they wanted, is some kind of, some combination of self-certification, but then with a professional outfit. Am I characterizing this right?
Every insurance company that we've talked to has said we are not an inspection company, and we have inspection companies that we partner with for the homes where we need to prioritize the inspectors, but the inspectors are a bottleneck, and we cannot possibly afford to send inspectors out to every single home. We send them out to the high net worth homes. We send them out to a handful of other homes, but we cannot possibly be expected. We need a scalable solution to confirm and validate what mitigation has happened.
Very, very interesting. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is my last, this is my ask to the folks on this call. We are looking for individual beta testers, but we are also in particular, one of the folks on the call is my colleague, Daniel Holmesy. We're looking for communities who are already FireWise communities or FireSafe councils who can start thinking about how to roll this out in a systematic way so that your community can be one of the first to benefit from the mitigation that you've already done, that your community has already done in terms of the insurance availability and affordability. And so first level of testers, we probably want community organizers. Next level, we're going to want some early adopters who are really comfortable with technology. And then we'll not want to think through what are the cases to getting everybody, or at least a critical mass of folks, inspecting, either self-inspecting or having friends and neighbors do the inspection, and then starting to get you guys connected to insurance. And realistically, this process is going to take months. It's not weeks, but do contact me. My email address is right here. I did not put my phone number up, but it's available on the internet if you happen to be able to find it and want to call me instead of emailing me. But I am very grateful for your attention, and I'm so heartened by all the good work that's being done by the folks on this call, by Ivan and Madronus, in helping solve this crisis, which it really is. And I do remain an optimist, like Amy, like you said.
Well, thank you, Kate. I really appreciate that you are just like Ivan, that you are innovating to do something very tangible that is going to move the ball for households. And I don't think that we're talking about there being one thing, only one thing, right? So we have, the hands-on work. I think that Ivan and his team, and that many other people on this meeting are involved in facilitating. But then we also have this app that you're developing. I really hope that some of the folks on the call do give you some input, because I think that I've always thought it's going to end up being some sort of an app like that, right, where you self-certify certain things with photos. I've kept my bushes at bay, that sort of thing. That said, we did get somebody in the chat, John Morgan, posting a survey and saying CAL FIRE has a self-assessment tool. Would you be able to, Kate, talk a little bit about the difference between CAL FIRE's assessment tool and the FireBreak app that you're developing?
Yeah, so I'm showing, if you can see the demo of what our app looks like. So it's a regular app, and it has these different categories of self-inspection. The last time I looked, which admittedly was many months ago, at the CAL FIRE survey, self-assessment survey, it is a web app as opposed to a native app. It's sort of in the form of a survey. And it does, it walks you through what kinds of issues you should look at in your house. And it's not clear to me that there's a connection, a data connection between that and insurance. And it's also not clear to me whether there's an automated advice given on what the mitigation steps should be. And the third comment that I have is that what I remember after having filled out the survey and getting back the report, and correct me, I'm sure there are folks on this call who can correct me if I'm wrong, is the full list of the actions as opposed to a rank ordered. And, we want to recognize one of the things, having been in the disaster recovery space for as much time as I have, is that people get overwhelmed. People get overwhelmed. You should buy flood insurance. God damn it, I know I should buy flood insurance. Stop reminding me of all the ways in which I'm deficient. And so, overwhelming people with a lot of things that make them feel inadequate is tough. And it's like, we have to be really sensitive about that. We all want to be saviors and heroes in trying to make the world a safer place, but we also have to recognize the humanity of all of ourselves. And so how do we triage the advice that we give in ways that give people the space, the emotional space to actually take these actions.
Well, that's a very enlightened observation. I think there, and by the way, if there are people, I've done my best to monitor the chat, although people seem to be answering each other's questions very effectively. But if there's something that hasn't been asked, if you at this point want to raise your hand because the chat's gotten a little cluttered, go right ahead. But I think, you know, there's a lot of people in this group that are right there on the ground with their neighbors, you know, trying to preach the good actions and having their neighbors say, well, what's the point? You know, I'm still going to get dropped. But I am hearing that insurers are, like I said earlier, that it's not, we're getting, things are starting to move in terms of insurers are wanting to find reasons to at least I'm hoping they're going to, and it feels like we're getting there a little bit to sift now the homes and the communities where people are really engaging and engaged, that there's some momentum that we're building here. You know, a lot of the questions in the chat have been about, well, who's rewarding these things? So Karen Austin says, our farmer's agent says, the foremost things he wants proof of before trying to write a policy for us is central fire alarm, security system, automatic gas and water shut off. I asked about installation rules for fire risk reduction, specific modifications like WUI ember resistant vents, and whether retrofitting is only needs to be by certified installers or can it be by a DIY person. He responded that vents are low on the list and they care more about overhanging foliage and updated roofs. Ivan, do you want to speak to that? He responded that vents are low on the list and they care more about overhanging foliage and updated roofs. Now, this is an agent of, so they're going to say what they think that they've taken from it. Ivan, do you want to speak to that comment?
Sure. So yeah, generally speaking, there's now this concept of a 4-point inspection that's required for a lot of real estate transactions. And so it touches on some of the things that were listed here. Class A fire rated roofs are both required by Wildfire Prepared Home and the California Department of Insurance's Safer from Wildfires framework. The good news is, by and large, roofs in California have been required to be Class A fire rated, and unless you have a wood shingle roof, you're in pretty good shape there. I don't agree with the comment that vents are low priority, but it's also true that overhanging foliage and vegetation near the house are a big risk factor, and so very important in reducing wildfire risk.
Okay, Kate, I'm not sure if I cut you off before you were done. I was just,
you did not, and I
okay.
actually have a comment on the former one, which is that underwriting criteria have not caught up to the science, and so the updated roof and the overhanging foliage don't relate to wildfire. They relate to the fact that people make insurance claims to get new roofs because contractors come around after storms, particularly hailstorms, but also windstorms, and they say, those duds in your roof, they were caused by the storm. Let's file an insurance claim and get you a new roof. And so the claims history, so most of the underwriting criteria are based on claims history right now. The vast amount of data in the claims history relate to roof claims from windstorms and hailstorms. And so in our experience talking with underwriters, which that's what we do, is that the underwriting criteria have not yet caught up. And it's our job in the industry to help the underwriters figure out what are the appropriate criteria. And the WRAP framework, the Safer from Wildfires framework, the IBHS, Wildfire Prepared Home, are the underwriting criteria. One or more of those are the appropriate underwriting criteria, and trickle down, those data requests will trickle down.
So this is just a really great conversation, because I think again, what, a lot of what UP does is connect people with other people that are doing good work and also with information, right? And one of the things that insurance company representatives have been saying is, we were hoping there would be one set of rules and everybody would be on the same page. But we ended up with two, basically, right? We have IBHS and we have Safer from Fires. And they also were saying they had been hoping that they would only be required to give a discount, to put into their rating plans a discount for people who did everything on the list. But the way that the department wrote the regulation is actually more in the way we wanted them to write it, which is everything helps, right? Every little bit helps. Give people a break here, right? They're doing what they can, right? So the department did take, I think, a much more kind of consumer-friendly position. I think insurers are always looking for a much more bright line rule. So all of that being said, where sounds like, Kate, you're more on the give people, acknowledge, recognize everything they've done. Ivan, do you feel like realistically that we're just gonna, it's gonna have to be wildfire prepared home or bust? Or do you feel like, or do you feel like insurers are just because we're in the real world, they're going to have to be a little bit more flexible about saying, yeah, we'll write you even though you have not checked all the boxes? What do you think?
That's the $64,000 million question, depending on when you were born in inflation. But I think that the science would suggest that you need a certain threshold of mitigation actions that are self-reinforcing, because you protect one area for members, but you're still vulnerable in another area. It doesn't start to move the needle. And so from an actual risk standpoint, I do think that there's merit in the approach of wildfire prepared home. I'm also, very sensitive, and I think Kate eloquently said, the humanity of this is that there is a psychology and a motivation, and it's up to all of us to figure out how to help people in that journey and make it approachable and simple. And that's what we've attempted to do, is to take this big scary requirement and break it into a series of easy steps. And it is an investment, but it's definitely approachable for many homeowners to just knock it all off in one go. It'll also be interesting with more data that we'll start to see some of these homes that have done various levels of mitigation work. And another point that Kate brought up is has the science and the underwriting teams at insurers caught up with the science, and do we have good enough data? And so as we start to see homes get tested, which that's not an ethical experiment anybody can run, but we will eventually get enough information that might argue for relaxing some of these approaches.
And I will say, when we had somebody from IBHS on when they first unrolled the list and the program, and that was, I think, one of the first questions I asked him: does it have to be everything? So, and I understand from a fire scientist perspective, and I think Steve Quarles is on today's call, they're going to have to say, I mean, if you really want to do what to make it the most resistant as possible, that's why we've derived all these steps, because that's the system. That being said, I think that we're all moving in the right direction. And then I'm just one very last question, if you don't mind, Ivan, if you can you kind of reel off the names of the insurers if you know that are currently really kind of embracing the IBHS designation as a grounds for renewal?
Yeah, so Farmers is the most active. They are requiring about 1 to 1.5% of their book of business to be wildfire prepared home at the base or plus level as a condition of renewal. And they're targeting mostly homes that are on larger property that have separation in the WUI, as it were. And then we've also seen kind of on the outer edge of suburban type communities, they're requiring some of those policyholders to get certified. CSAA, AAA are taking a pretty draconian approach, in my opinion. They're requiring plus level certification of many of their policyholders, and that's just not realistic. And we did get our first customer who's a State Farm policyholder who was told that they needed to get wildfire prepared home, but there hasn't been too many there. My understanding is that most of the admitted carriers do have rate filings with the Department of Insurance in the process of being reviewed that mention the wildfire prepared home program. So I do think that those numbers are going to grow and increase.
Any surplus lines carriers embracing either of the rubrics, either of the any
Not yet.
engagement? Not yet. Okay.
We're working with some surplus line carriers who are entering the market and embracing them. So like one of the surplus line carriers is called Delos. Their carrier is called Homesite. So you guys probably talked about it. I think they've come up on this before. And we're working with a surplus line carrier that will be starting to sell policies on July 1st that incorporate basically a version of the Safer from Wildfires framework as their underwriting criteria, which is, again, not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Great. Okay, a few very, very important pieces of progress, I'd say, that we have covered today. I want to thank Kate Stillwell with I think of you as Jumpstart, but FireBreak, I will think of you as FireBreak. I think of you as Kate Stillwell. Anyway, keep up the great work there. And Ivan and Madronus, you're definitely moving the ball down the field. We really appreciate it. You know, the dialoguing with insurers is actually very important. And I think I'm going to try to get more insurer representatives to be participating in these calls, because I think a lot of it is just the culture of it, getting people to understand that there's just a lot of work and energy going in to risk reduction and wildfire risk reduction in California. So I want to have everybody save the date for our next meeting, Tuesday, May 21st at 1 p.m. We will let you know who our speakers are going to be, but you're always welcome to email. Thank you, MJ Lee, for your suggestion for speakers, but email Emily@uphelp.org or me, Amy@uphelp.org. We are here to collectively advance the ball down the field and really try to make a dent in this crisis. And people are really hurting. We all know that, and it's just so important that we advance mitigation together as we are endeavoring to do here. So again, a big thanks to my team, Emily Rogan, Val Brown, Joel Loucher, Annie Barber, Ben Laturno, Katie Oliver. Thank you so much, all of you, and for everybody who took the time to come with us today on this journey. And please, please, please stay in touch. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much, Ivan, Daniel, Stephen. Keep up the pioneering work. And we will all be better off for it. That's a wrap.